When you go to a game convention, there is a small chance that you will overindulge and acquire too many things to reasonably fit in your luggage. I've done this a number of times, starting at Spiel 2004, my first trip to that event, when I hit those used game vendor stalls hard, finding so many treasures that were not available in the United States, making this walk back to the room that I had rented, going through the Gruga Park with this big stack of unwieldy games, and I get to the dungeon room that I had rented with a few other people, and finding that I'd pretty much filled my bag on the first day. I hadn't even experienced much of the fair itself. I just had all these things, and now I had to get them home. And the first time you experience this, you come across the idea of Tetrising all your games together in order to make them fit. You have volume limitations, what actually fits into your suitcase, as well as weight limitations, because while you can pay to go over the weight limit on a bag, you don't want to do so. Why would you want to do so when you can use that money to buy more games to exacerbate the problem? So you're confronted with all these games and trying to figure out how to make them all fit, reduce them in volume, reduce them in weight. And there's a number of ways you can do this. And I'll show off some of the games I brought home from Spiel 22 to demonstrate how this is done. Here are some of the items that came home with me from Spiel 22. I had shipped myself a box, but these were on my person, with these items being in my suitcase and these two large box games being in a carry-on, specifically this canvas Queen Games bag that has served me well over the years, being extremely sturdy and allowing me to cram a lot of stuff into it, as heavy as I can manage to carry without appearing to struggle. And no one in the airline has ever questioned me because things fit in the overhead. So you're all set. In terms of what you're doing with these items, well, with the Smart Games logic puzzle, I'm just solving it, right? I got to keep myself busy on the flight home. There's no way to fit this in anything else but get rid of the packaging and just have this. For these yellow titles, they will be newly announced soon. It's part of a card game line that they're doing. I came home with a couple of sample copies of things. You just punch everything out. Throw away the other cardboard, just bring home the components. Just lighten the load a little bit just by punching things. That's all you're trying to do, because you're going to punch them later. Why not just punch them now? Instead of this solid sheet of cardboard, now you've got little bits. That's pretty straightforward. Some things cannot be shrunk down, such as Stellarion, first title that Shadi Torby is releasing on his own. Right? You pull out everything out, you're trying to see what you can compact and what you can get rid of, and you look at this and you're like, well, okay, oh, I did punch this one thing. That's it. That was all there was. Almost nothing, and so be it. Why did I keep the catalog? I didn't need to, except it previews future titles coming in the Oniverse. Yes, Siberian, new version of Urbion, and Ultimaeon, with extremely fragmented descriptions of what's coming. So I had to keep that as a teaser just to make sure that I can write about them in the future. You have more standard things like these card games. Magellan, it's just a card game, and you open the box and you take out the rules, and what? There was a deck of cards with a cardboard insert. But I also bought this other card game from Pythagoras. I think they were €5 each. And this one, same thing. You open it up and it was a deck of cards and a cardboard insert. But instead, you can put them both in one box and nest that box inside the other box. And there you go. You have two games in the space of one. So you're not reducing the weight, but you are reducing the volume. Okay. Small thing, redraw. Well, I have two small games from Itten stuffed inside. There might have been an insert, I think. There was also this, was it 100 yen game, I believe? 500, nope, 100 yen game. It's part of a series of games that is coming out in Japan where there are essentially dollar stores that have extremely affordable games. done in this little packaging. So you can try to introduce people to games, all sorts of different types of games in a very small format. So this was also a sample game from Itten, and they'll all fit in redraw once I threw out the insert, because all this is decks of cards, rules. I don't need to keep the insert. It's wasted space. Put other things inside. If I really like this game and I want to keep it, well, now I know I can probably cut it in half and shrink the box, as I have done in the past with other things. Xar. I played this 2-player game a few times and loved it. It's all wood, solidly packed inside. I knew this one could not be shrunk, so I didn't bother opening it. But it's an awesome game, and maybe I can do a video about it at some point. This title, Peace Postman, was recommended to me from designer Kim Si-hee, and they were sold out. And I offered to buy the last copy that they had on display when they closed up on this Sunday, and the guy said, if you come by, I'll give it to you. And I remembered to come by, so took this home as a gift. It's sort of a Trans-America Ticket to Ride combination. Let's give a brief description of the game with the components. There's these little rail components, there's this business card, and what you are trying to do in the game is deliver letters between North and South Korea, trying to reunite the families that have been separated for so long, not through causes of their own, but you were trying to make connections to them. So you were going to have goal cards that show certain connections that should be made, and you're going to have a standard deck of cards and play pieces on the map in order to make connections between these areas. So, seemed very cool, very thematic, specific to the Korean history. I was very curious to try this out and highlight it just to show a work that otherwise might not be seen. Thankfully, I was able to bring that home and then do that in the future. And inside that box, as you notice, there is lots of room. So, have a small game by Helvetique by Sophia Wagner, with heard a few people talking about Mata. Don't really know anything about it, but it was 10 euros, I think. So I bought it, brought it home. Red 7, which I bought as a gift for people who were watching our dog. It's a Dutch version, and they are Belgian. So perfect gift. And it fit in there, along with Mata, everything in one box. And then you get to stuff like this. So Creed, funny story. Got an email from Hans O at Hangam Games, and he mentioned he was kind of pleased that I had Creed in the background of so many of my videos, because for a long time it was on the wall of games behind me, specifically a prototype version that he had given me, I believe, at Spiel 2019. Right, a little mock-up version of the game ahead of the release. All the components in this carry bag. And I don't think I ever played it. It's hard to tell. There's sort of a few lost years where I don't remember things. But he liked that I was showing it off, and he's like, well, let me give you a finished version of the game. And I said, that is awesome, thanks. And then I proceeded to throw out the insert and shove other games inside, because here are all the components you need in order to play Creed, which is 2 or 4 players. You got some tile racks, you got some other pieces, and inside it, well, here's a game from Vietnamese publisher, Board Game VN. First time they were at Spiel, I talked with them for a while about BGG and about their market, try to get a sense of what they're doing, just because I had not met any Vietnamese publishers. So I brought home a sample copy of Zucksack, which they had mock-ups of. They did not have the finished version, and inside is a game from Jolly Dutch that I had bought. So one game inside another game inside another game. So, there's that. As well, Inside Job, trick-taking game from Cosmos, in which there is a trader, and so, okay, I punched that out. That's that. So, there's these 3 games inside Creed. And what do we have over here? Princes of Florence. It's a new version from Korea Board Games. So, a sample copy I got to take home. They've added new solitaire rules in the game, which I am curious about. This is an extremely heavy box at this point. Not because of the Princess of Florence itself, but because I have 4 other games inside. 2 others from 2 from Bloom Games, another Korean publisher. I had 4 Korean publishers in this stack. Technically, I do not have the publishers in the stack. I have the games from them in the stack. I got brief overviews of Memory Island and Cradle to Grave. Cradle to Grave seemed like a fun little card game where you were trying to de-age yourself and age others, because you're going to have number cards you put in front of people. Everyone has 2 cards, and so you are 18 years old until I play a card and make you 78 years old, and eventually you're trying to push people into the grave. Splitto, one of many games that are related to splitting. Oh, here's another game. There are 5 games inside of here. Another Jolly Dutch title that I purchased. Jumo title I purchased from a retailer. They did not have a booth at Spiel. They had a retailer, a couple of retailers who were carrying the game, and I bought the game there. And there's nothing else inside. Okay. And then here's the elements for Princess of Florence. So it's still kind of beefy all on its own, but not like it was before. When it had, let's see if I can close this here, 5 other games inside it. These are all like fodder games that you can use and fit inside other things. And if you have an obsession for card games, you can fit a lot there. So if we restack everything that I had, okay. So, there's all the original games. Oh, I didn't take out the other one. There's these 2. I'm throwing stuff all around. See how casually I treat these things. Let me take this one out. And there you go. Here's the original package that I showed you. Here's what I had stacked up. And then here was all the other stuff that was inside. So inside these games here, I had another 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 tiny, tiny games. My collection would probably be mostly tiny, tiny games, because card games are the thing I love most. And here we go. I shoved all these inside these other ones here and took them home secretly. Only I knew they were there. Through careful packing, I effectively made the volume of these 14 items disappear inside other games in my luggage and carry-on. Games are a little roomier than you initially realize, especially once you start punching things out and taking out the inserts. You find that you can drop the game board and the rules on the bottom of the box and put other things on the side, and then there's this big space in the middle of the box that can fit something else. And you'll find boxes that are slightly smaller than other boxes and so on, and you can nest them all together and fit everything in there, and it's amazing. It's almost like a magic trick how everything fits. I've moved a lot in my life, and I've packed many, many, many times for moves, and that experience has come in handy for something like this, where I can visualize how things are going to fit together and then do it fairly efficiently. That takes care of the volume issue of things. Just nest it all together, stuff vanishes, done. However, it doesn't quite address the weight. Sort of. You can do 3 things to reduce the weight of the games you're bringing home, and 2 of them tie in with reclaiming volume as well. One of those is removing inserts. Just get rid of them. They're often paper inserts, very thick paper inserts, depending on the European production of the game in question, and inserts weigh a lot, but I don't find they do a lot. I understand that some people store games vertically. They find the inserts helpful for keeping things organized, but as you can see, I store stuff horizontally, and I just don't find them very useful. I often just sweep things into the box and put the lid on it, and I'm done. The insert does nothing except take up space and make something way more. So I get rid of it. I recycle it. Done. The same is true of the outer cardboard frames for components, because you'll sometimes buy a game that has 8 sheets where you're going to punch stuff out. And if you punch all that stuff out and put it in baggies, it takes up a lot less space. And then those cardboard frames go away. All the weight of that cardboard is gone. So you're reclaiming volume and getting rid of weight at the same time, just as you do when you were getting rid of inserts. It works. You might want to bring a little baggie of baggies there in case the game doesn't come with some, and so that way you can make sure to put all the components together. Nothing gets lost, it's all accounted for, and it stays together within a box. I have done things in the past where I will put the components of one game inside another game, inside something else, or make a whole brick of game boards and put it in my carry-on and do this other stuff. I have found that that is more troublesome, where I will forget where the components were for something, or it's just a generic bag of wood bits, and here's another generic bag of wood bits and another one, and which game do they go with? If you do something like that, put little paper slips inside those bags so you remember the name of it, or just don't go quite that far. Those were extreme examples where I really had to pull out all the stops to make everything fit. Things get a little lost at that point. So, okay, 3 things to regain weight. Get rid of inserts, get rid of the cardboard frames around components, and number 3 is to get rid of rule books that you do not need. If you don't speak a certain language, you probably don't need the rule book. You might consider the game incomplete. It comes normally with these rules. What if I sell it in the future and the French rules aren't in there anymore? It seems like a small thing to worry about in terms of what's going to happen in the future should you sell a game, and if they happen to be someone who speaks only French who you run into, if you are not a French speaker yourself. Seems unlikely. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm instead going to reclaim that weight. I made a little TikTok of all the stuff that I had punched out from these games and weighed it all, and it was 2.2 pounds. It doesn't seem like a lot, but your luggage has a maximum weight of 50 pounds, and so that's 4% of what can go inside a suitcase. It's effectively garbage that I'm going to recycle in a European country that has very friendly recycling policies, and be rid of it. It's gone. And instead I can fill that space with something else. Either just put a game inside my luggage instead of in a carry-on where it could be a little more awkward, or as I did in this case, I went and bought candy that I'm going to give to my son and other people. European candy that they couldn't get here. That weight was made possible through the tossing of other stuff. So you can do things like that. Just reclaim your weight by pulling stuff out. Now, the downside to doing all this, okay, the upside is you're getting more games in there, you're fitting it all in, you're making your carry-on a little smaller. Okay, good. That's getting everything in there. The downside to doing all this is that it's going to take time, which means unless you're staying around at a convention for an extra day, which is probably not the case, you are going to have to spend some of the time that you would have spent playing games or sleeping with boring stuff, that is, punching out game components, bagging stuff, tossing inserts, and fitting everything together. That takes time. It's not fun. But if you don't have an infinite supply of money and hotel time that allows you the freedom to, just do this on a separate day, or you are paying for a separate piece of luggage, or you're willing to pay the overweight fee, or any of those types of things, well, you just suck it up and you lose some sleep and you decide, well, I'll play these games home when I'm rested, have plenty of time, and full, fresh games that I might not have had otherwise if I didn't have that space available. It's a valuable skill, right? Doing this. At least that's what I tell myself.